For those of you who joined us early, welcome. We'll be getting started in just a couple minutes at the top of the hour. And for those of you that have joined us a couple minutes early, welcome. We'll be getting started just around the top of the hour, so hang tight. For those of you who have logged in a couple minutes early, welcome. We're going to be getting started in just a couple minutes, so hang in there and we'll start shortly. For those of you who have joined already, welcome to NTMA's webinar today, hosted by us, MachineMetrics. We're going to give everyone just like one more minute to log in, and then we're going to kick things off. So hang tight for 60 seconds or so, and we'll get started. All right, well, it's 2:01 Eastern time here in Boston, Massachusetts. So we're going to get things started. Just wanted to welcome everybody who's here today from the area, from around the country, from around the world. Welcome. Thanks NTMA for having us, MachineMetrics, here today. We're excited to be here and to be hosting this awesome webinar on remote machine monitoring. So just a brief introduction to the topic and what we're going to be talking about today. So, whether you're social distancing or simply working away from the factory floor, remote and real-time remote visibility into manufacturing operations is a game changer for any manufacturer who's looking to maximize their productivity and efficiency. Yet, amazingly, in today's mobile world, research shows that only 46% of manufacturers have integrated any sort of real-time remote monitoring processes within their factories. And without access to machine data, many manufacturers are operating without the information, the insights they need at their fingertips to make informed decisions at a moment's notice. This results in not just major efficiency losses, but allowing other companies to have a competitive advantage. So in today's webinar, we're going to be exploring the power of remote machine monitoring and its ability to enable manufacturers to harness the power of real-time data from anywhere at any time without physically having to be in the same space as operational machines. We're also going to explore key drivers for manufacturers to begin remote machine monitoring in their factories today, such as how it all works, the most profitable use cases for manufacturers and even machine providers to leverage remote machine monitoring, and what you should look for in a remote machine monitoring platform. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Graham Immerman, and I'm the VP of Marketing at MachineMetrics, and that's what I looked like before COVID times. So, looking forward to getting back in a real shirt and a jacket someday. But for now, you've got me working from home. Like I said, coming to you live from the home office in Boston, Massachusetts. It's great to be here again with NTMA. Just going to roll over a quick agenda here. We're going to start off with a real brief introduction to MachineMetrics for those of you who don't know who we are. And then we're just going to jump into the main topic. Why go remote? How, for those of you that are interested, how do you go remote? And what are the top use cases that can drive value for our organization? Then we're going to stop and talk about some best practices about remote enablement. And finally, we're going to be taking a Q&A at the end of the session. Before we get started, just a couple quick housekeeping notes. This webinar is, in fact, being recorded. So fear not, we will send out a link, likely NTMA will send out a link of the recording after the webinar. Questions are also welcome. I see this is my classic slide for Zoom. We're obviously using GoToWebinar here. So there is a Q&A section that allows you to ask questions at any time in the GoToWebinar console that you just logged in from. Please do not hesitate to ask those questions. I will do my best to get to them in real time, but if not, I will make sure to hold on to them and answer as many as I can at the end of the webinar. Okay, so let's just dive into things, right? So to get started, a bit about us. So as I was saying previously today, it's really never been more important for manufacturers to deliver the best products as efficiently as possible. Continuous improvement in manufacturing starts with capturing insights from the heart of manufacturing operations. That tends to be specifically the machine assets that make these products, and the people that run these machines. These manufacturing equipment assets produce hundreds, if not thousands, of data points every second, all of which tell a story of what's happening, what's happened, what's happening now, and what's going to happen next. The inefficiencies that exist at these manufacturing equipment levels are also the lowest hanging fruit to driving value and efficiencies for your organizations, and the catalyst to empowering many future automations within the factory. The biggest obstacle to achieving this is that getting usable, actionable data and insights from these assets is really freaking hard. So, MachineMetrics, we've made that really easy. So, MachineMetrics was designed to reduce friction for digital factory initiatives, so organizations can start realizing the benefits of their machine data immediately and continuously without having to rebuild the wheel from scratch. Our intuitive and flexible machine data platform easily collects and analyzes data from any piece of manufacturing equipment that you have on the factory floor, from turning, milling, stamping, fabrication, injection molding, cold heading, lasers, axes, grinders, welders, robots, cobots, you name it, to deliver powerful, actionable insights and automations for factory workers in a matter of minutes. And doing so, we can drive decisions from anywhere in the world at any time that go right to your bottom line, starting from day one. Today, we do have hundreds of manufacturers who have connected thousands of machines to MachineMetrics across their global factories. It's safe to say we're one of the largest and fastest growing startups within the manufacturing space in the world. But it's not just large organizations. We work with from small mom and pop job shops to some of the largest manufacturing companies in the world. And these companies are leveraging our plug and play machine connectivity, monitoring and analytics to optimize shop floor productivity, increase manufacturing equipment utilization, drive automations on the factory floor, and maximize their profitability and efficiency driven from their factory floors. All right, enough about us. Let's talk about the topic at hand. So first of all, why go remote? The often cited quote, "numbers don't lie," when applied to manufacturing, really highlights two important aspects of machine performance in today's world. Despite all the buzzwords, manufacturing as a whole has been remarkably slow to adopt that digital, data-centric automation mindset that has transformed other industries within this world, right? And because of this, there's a remarkable lack of data, which leads to massive inefficiencies that affect every component of the manufacturing operations. Anything from significant machining failures to just remarkable process inefficiencies, all of which cost manufacturers time, money, and cede a competitive advantage to others. Furthermore, there's a growing disparity between the number of people entering the field of manufacturing and the needs of the industry. And this has created a talent shortage, meaning we can't just throw people at solving this problem. I believe I'm probably preaching to the choir here. Throw in unrelenting pressure from global competition, and it's safe to say that it's never been more important for manufacturers to leverage data and automation to maximize their efficiency. In fact, MachineMetrics, like I said, we've connected to thousands of machines all over the world across global factories, and we can tell you that when we start working with manufacturers, that the average utilization of this equipment hovers around a staggeringly low 23%. Last year, top shops reported that the average manufacturer utilized their equipment between 60 and 70%. That's nowhere even close to accurate. We can tell you this because we're able to provide these types of insights across thousands of different machines we've connected to. And this is that average. It's a remarkable number, and it shows that manufacturers need help today, and they need it right now. To make things even more difficult, enter the COVID era, right? In industrial manufacturing, shop floor activity hit its lowest level since the Second World War. And in many cases, manufacturing facilities either had to shut down or are still suffering certain incapabilities due to this ongoing crisis that we are all still well within. And although many manufacturing facilities and overall production, for that matter, has somewhat rebounded with being either deemed essential and thus given the government go ahead to operate full steam ahead, or enable social distancing and other safety measures. This has become the new norm and is the new expectation to be applied across factory floors moving forward. So traditional manual processes can no longer be applied, or if used, take up excessive time. These time lapses add up, and their negative impact on factory efficiency levels are notable. Now let's just layer even more on top of this, because on top of all what I just said, we have a remote work renaissance on our hands. Even before the outbreak of coronavirus, remote work was on the rise as companies began to understand that remote employees were both cheaper and happier. In light of the quarantine measures that we're all experiencing and have experienced in the past, the world has embraced a remote work environment in a way that, while perhaps somewhat inevitable, was still likely years away. This has only accelerated something that was already coming. Recent Gallup surveys showed that up to 62% of people have or are working remotely today. It's a remarkable number to see that happen. Even more so is that 59% of workers who have been working from home during this time would actually prefer to continue to do so moving forward. I myself, I would do literally anything to get back into my office, right? And for digital companies like us, the impact of this change is significant, but frankly, manageable. For manufacturing companies, like many of you in attendance, this scenario is indeed far more complicated, as many manufacturing processes today still require human interactions, right? So pair this with the fact that manufacturing has, what we talked about earlier, an ever-growing talent shortage. So while demand for labor increases, the skills gap in manufacturing may leave anywhere from 2 to 3 million positions unfilled within the next decade. And that's a potential economic impact of almost $2.5 trillion. Crazy numbers. So when it comes to being able to meet demand, with almost 50% of the workforce working remotely, many manufacturers are just not equipped for this type of working environment. Now, here at MachineMetrics, we didn't build Zoom conference software. We didn't build these, remote communication platforms like Slack and, or Microsoft Teams. We didn't build all the other dozens of software designed for companies and their employees who are moving to a remote world. But we did build one, right? And our objective today is not to boil the ocean and talk to companies about how they can remove their entire business remote. Our focus is, and will always be on it, what's at the heart of these manufacturing operations, which are empowering the machines that make things and the people who manage them with data from anywhere, anytime. And for many on this webinar who know all too well that these complex pieces of manufacturing equipment require constant feeding, maintenance, optimization, those who are already suffering from systemic reactivity due to a lack of skilled labor on the factory floor, removing even more people from the factory feels probably unimaginable. Less than half of manufacturers have any sort of integrated remote access to real-time data from their factories, leaving many employees essentially flying blind from home to what's actually happening now on the line without any information that they need to make those decisions. Don't worry, this isn't all negative. There's good news. The first bit of good news is that first, in most manufacturing companies, as crazy as this may sound, non-production staff is anywhere between 25 to 50% of the total headcount. And what that means is that manufacturers can instantly enable remote work for up to half of these employees. We're going to get to how you can do that momentarily. Second, there go my slides. Secondly, manufacturers with remote employees face 3 real challenges that we can help solve today, and we're going to talk about today. Number one, how to effectively monitor production and machine health and performance without even being on site. How to get precise insights on machine performance issues, including what needs to be fixed, what needs to be adjusted or improved, so that limited on-site resources can focus on that high impact work. And third, how to enable on-site teams to become more autonomous and provide them with real-time support and expertise from anywhere at any time. So, as the title of the webinar says, right, we're here to talk about remote machine monitoring. What is that in the first place, right? Well, remote machine monitoring solutions leverage the power of machine data collection capabilities via IoT computing devices and a centralized cloud platform to make that data accessible from any location. Whole lot of buzzwords I just threw at you, right? But essentially, within these machines, thousands of data points currently exist that are siloed within the machine itself, right? By connecting IoT devices that can collect and transform that data and essentially like unlock that data from the machine and push that data into a secure cloud platform, that data is then accessible and usable from other locations. This provides manufacturers the necessary near real-time data from their manufacturing equipment and production to measure, analyze, and improve business operations without actually having to physically be right next to the machine or even be in the same building with these operational pieces of equipment. On this slide, which I call the matrix, this is the white void, right, that represents the unconnected factory floor, right? As you can see here, you got a machine, right? Now, as you heard in my spiel previously, these complex automated CNC equipment produces thousands of data points every second, all of which are telling these stories about what's happening and what just happened and what's going to happen next, right? But sadly, at this time, all that information is typically either shot off into space, essentially, or siloed within the machine itself. So the first objective of remote machine monitoring is first, simply collect that data from the machine. Much easier said than done. We're going to get into that later, a bit later. But this is the at its most basic use case. Get that data, unsilo it off the machine, stop shooting off into space, and collect it off the machine itself and push it somewhere else. Right. Second is to actually push that collected data into a centralized cloud platform where it can be accessed by employees from anywhere, anytime. If the data isn't in the cloud and it's on some on-premise server, I could give an entire webinar on why cloud platforms are much likelier to be secure than like an on-prem server that's managed by a local team. But another day, another battle. But this is the goal, right? It needs to be in the cloud so you can access it from anywhere at any time. There are certainly more secure cloud platforms than others. We can talk about that later, right? And then by connecting to and collecting data from and making available data from all pieces of equipment on the factory floor, manufacturers can now have visibility and access to that data to reduce equipment downtime, to take action to maximize profitability from their operations from anywhere at any time. Easy, right? Well, I guess that depends on who you ask and what platform you're going to use to solve this problem, right? So in evaluating remote monitoring platforms, knowing what to look for is often as easy as knowing what essentially to avoid. IoT, the buzzword of the century, right? Other than maybe predictive maintenance, has been billed as the silver bullet, right? To solve all manufacturing problems. But it's not really true. In fact, 81% of industrial IoT implementations last year failed due to the time-consuming, prohibitively expensive nature of their implementations and deployment. Long story short, they take too long, they cost too much, and they require huge upfront investments, as well as lacking a vertical domain expertise to help a manufacturer transform and take action on data from thousands of different types of machine types to arrive at any sort of measurable, quantifiable, justifiable investment. essentially leaving the manufacturer kind of like SOL, if you will. I assure you that there is a remarkable difference between collecting data from a tractor out in the middle of a field to collecting data in real time from a gearbox on an airplane to a manufacturing baggage claim, right? These pieces of discrete equipment, these machine tools that many of you use, are highly complex and have anywhere from 200 to thousands of different pieces of data on them. Even more complicated, there's literally dozens of different protocols, languages, all these different machines speak, from them to connect to OPC UA to OPC to UMATI to FANUC Focus to Siemens to Heidenheim to Haas, you name it, right? And this is a huge challenge that many companies struggle with. Now, many packaged applications like machine monitoring solutions have literally been around since like the 80s, kind of like when you used to use like MS-DOS, right? Back in the day, or logging into AOL, right, for the first time. But most of these are either not cloud-based, they're difficult to customize, they're difficult to extend use cases, and they integrate with, and they don't integrate with all the different systems that exist in your factory today, right? So customizing and upkeeping many of these applications solutions along those other disparate applications and systems can essentially become a nightmare when it comes to like upgrading the system. Do you have to pay maintenance fees? And how do you scale this across your machines, or even if you have multiple factories, right? So what is the solution, right? What to look for in a remote monitoring platform? Well, here's a couple things that we see, right? Number one, you got to be able to connect to everything, right? Every manufacturer has different types of equipment. Sometimes a few brands, makes, models, sometimes dozens, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of different machines, from, like I said, from turning to milling, stamping, to fabrication, blah, 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 right? A successful remote machine monitoring platform has to be able to connect to everything, not just the easy assets, if you want to have full visibility into everything that's happening in your factory. Number two, that has to be easy, right? It can't be a manual, beleaguered process, right? Successful remote monitoring platforms must be able to rapidly and easily be deployed. They need to be able to provide access to this data at a moment's notice from anywhere, without the reliance on a complex integration team coming on site, setting things up, or to expand implementations. Third, you need to be able to actually get that data and have it be actionable from anywhere, right? Easier said than done here as well. Of course, it's good to be able to connect to everything and easily deploy, but it's all irrelevant if the data that you get isn't actually actionable. It may seem obvious, but this is a paramount component of remote monitoring. Without the cloud, without the ability to transform data into actionable formats, you're really going nowhere fast. You're just putting all that misunderstood, confusing data into somewhere you also then will not understand it somewhere else, right? So it's not just good enough. Petros, I got a question from you. Can you hear me? Am I being loud enough here? If not, please let me know, and I'll try to speak a bit louder if I can. Forgive me. The fourth piece of this puzzle is vertical expertise. Right? It's not just good enough to get data and shoot it off into the cloud. Successful solutions in manufacturing space require vertical expertise. As I said previously, it's not the same thing to monitor a tractor in the middle of a field versus a complex CNC machine in a tool in a factory. Solutions of vertical expertise provide necessary context to enable data actionability. Lastly, and this may seem also obvious, but I assure you that it's worth reviewing, as we talk to many companies that try to rebuild this wheel from scratch. Trying to build software platforms as a manufacturer, even if you're one of the largest companies in the world, is a losing game. It is a misallocation of resources when you should be doing what you do best, which is making the best products in the world. Thus, successful platforms have the ability to provide these out-of-the-box use cases with no initial development required on the manufacturing side. So you can take it, you can connect to these assets, all that data can be available, and you could have the use cases that you need to start driving immediate value from day one. This is one of the reasons why MachineMetrics platform, for example, is able to drive a 20% increase in machine utilization for our customers in the first month, because we've made all that really easy. So what does a remote machine monitoring setup look like, right? We kind of reviewed it very quickly earlier, but the first part of any successful remote machine monitoring platform is getting the data, right, and making it usable. I'll give you MachineMetrics as an example in this case, because that's the company I work for, but MachineMetrics largely gathers data directly from the control of these machines, which bypasses the need to slap additional sensors and complications involved with the installation of sensors on the external sides of machines to provide a truly scalable, easy to use solution that it can be self-installed by customers. Last year, I think 90% of MachineMetrics customers installed MachineMetrics without us ever coming on site. And that's critical, because if you're going to enable your factory to remote machine monitoring, you don't want to have to wait. You want to be able to do this now. You want to be able to make it easy. You don't want to have to wait for installers and integrators and so on and so forth, right? To connect our edge devices, for example, to a machine or a network of machines is very easy, and it takes just 20 minutes to connect to any automated manufacturing equipment. And in doing so, we enable that data to be instantly consumable and insights to be driven literally in a matter of minutes. And that data can then securely be streamed to the cloud via Ethernet, Wi-Fi, or even cellular communication. This capability of collecting data and pushing it to a central IoT platform is paramount to enabling remote machine monitoring. In the cloud, all that data, right, it's gathered, it's processed in a centralized location, usually in a data center, right? I think the concept of the cloud is oftentimes misunderstood. It doesn't actually exist out in the sky. The data is literally pushed to these highly guarded, remarkably secure data centers. All devices that need access to this data or use applications associated with it must first connect to that cloud. And since everything is centralized, the cloud is actually generally much easier to secure and control while still allowing for reliable remote access to this data. Once the data is processed, analyzed, if you will, in the cloud, which happens really quickly, it can be immediately accessed through an IoT platform, such as MachineMetrics, in a number of ways, right? Whether it be via real-time visualizations and reporting, diagnostic analytics, to help improve your ability to make decisions based on real-time data. Now, it's all about making the data usable, right? What good is it if to remotely monitor, to remotely collect data and push into some central service? You have no idea what to do with it once it's there, right? So our approach has been to leverage built-in applications that are designed specifically for factory floor and remote workers to drive value immediately after connecting that equipment. Anything from real-time dashboards, historical reports, rules-based workflows, text email notification systems. You can also build your own applications or extend, integrate into other systems built by our customers and partners to provide additional value and automation potential from that machine data, all of which can be hosted within the cloud. So once you're able to harness that machine data, digital thread, the opportunities for automating, for automation, right, within your factories become literally endless, right? If a load exceeds a certain threshold on your machine, kick off a workflow that updates, that triggers a work order in your maintenance system. Provide real-time feedback to your quality systems. Feedback to production design, make sure that your parts are being optimized and designed correctly to optimize production, right? To real-time data feedback to logistics systems like ERP and analytics for supply chain, so you can optimize material orders and tooling and resources. Receiving faster customized remote support from your machine, your component providers, to providing greater transparency and traceability to your current customers. This is really at the heart of remote monitoring, because the less people that are present on the factory floor, the more automation is required to support the continuation of process. So as we discussed previously, while some manufacturers have been forced to change strategies temporarily, or others have a need to double down on what they do best. Some of our customers, literally they need to increase capacity. They need to do it right now, right? And one thing is certain, that by enabling mobile workers, industrial companies are better able to ensure the safety of their workers today while continuing to serve their current customers. Now, it's true that today's factories are going remote out of quote unquote necessity, but many are finding that fewer on-site staff and more virtual input can actually result in a substantial bottom line improvement. Accept the concept, expect, right, the concept of a virtual shift to be widely adopted in the future, even after all this coronavirus social distancing madness ends. Right now, any manufacturer can leverage solutions like MachineMetrics platform and these digital applications designed to enable remote work, especially during times where social distancing is imperative. And by enabling these remote workers, manufacturers will be more able to ensure the safety of their workers and build a foundation for future efficiency. Now, there are a number of use cases, right, and ways that platforms like MachineMetrics, for example, are empowering these workers to continue to work remotely and keep their plants running during times like these and into the future of automation. First is just as simple as it comes, automating production data collection. Automating production data collection and entry is a surefire point of value and a quick solution to reduce both movement and unnecessary personal interaction in a time where it's really never been more difficult to do so. Not to mention, manual data collection is time-consuming, inefficient, and leads to reactive decision-making. So by doing this, you're essentially killing two birds with one stone. I really hate that analogy, but you're essentially accomplishing two tasks at once. Another use case that we see very often is just monitoring your production from anywhere. And the truth is, whether you're social distancing or simply working away from the factory floor, using real-time visibility enabled by remote machine monitoring solutions to understand what's happening in the factory is a game changer. Using any internet-capable device, views like real-time dashboards, production reports easily allow you to remotely monitor the progress of what's happening in the factory. And you can also easily invite additional employees to platforms like MachineMetrics to access this data remotely with use cases that are best for them and no additional cost, right? So, take a quick look at your current users and consider, who else can we provide data to, and who can work remotely. Enhancing communication is another awesome use case here. Timely communication of critical information. This is always important in the shop floor, but it's never been more important and is even magnified as daily routines have continued to be impacted during this time. Consider developing internal strategies for using real-time notifications that can be driven by systems like MachineMetrics. There's no better time than now to start enabling real-time notification triggers. You can literally trigger notifications for anything from significant utilization drops in machines to machine alarms that are occurring on machines to specific downtime events, when loads exceed certain thresholds, when cycle times exceed certain limits, when feed rates are either decreased or increased on machines. All of this is instantly capable, right? And the question you have to ask is, well, what do we want to notify who of and when, and how do we set that up? And it's really easy in systems like ours, for example. Balancing your customer needs with staff considerations is also key during these times, right? And having the data needed to staff strategically is an important advantage that many of our customers have had during this time. By using key data points such as week-over-week machine utilization, critical job performance, you can make informed scheduling and staffing decisions. Historical data can also be leveraged to quantify the impact current conditions are having on your business and make projections about future environments. So you can inform those future decisions that you make as well. Enabling lights out capabilities. I'm sure this is something that many people here may be interested in, maybe not, but we hear this a lot from our customers, right? Although not every manufacturer has the ability to do lights out manufacturing, if you have invested in robotics, palletized machines, bar feeders, and other automations, now is the time to leverage them to their fullest, right? Running lights out will help you keep your critical jobs running while spacing out your employees tending machines to mitigate risk. Okay? We have an operator insight feature, which allows us to be much easier. You can see operators signing in while tending machines, and you can monitor things like setups, changeovers, with notifications when they're either exceed certain limits, or when your bar feeder alarms, or when the machine requires lubrication. You can be alerted about any critical alarms, including like while the machine is being unmanned, and respond to any critical issues or alarms quickly without actually having to be in the same location. This is another really cool use case that we're seeing come out a lot during this time, is a rapidly growing example of digital machine health, which allows maintenance, reliability, and operational teams to remotely monitor health and take action only when absolutely necessary on machines. Now, corporate management benefits greatly from this resulting visibility, as well as the ability to guide on-site activity via remote collaboration through platforms like MachineMetrics. So with rapid adoption of technologies like ours, manufacturers are engaging in two modes essentially of operation, right? The physical shift for on-site teams that operate and maintain machines on the factory floor, and the virtual shift for remote teams that monitor the factory and help optimize machine performance and operations from a distance. Ideally, those physical shifts, supported by virtual shifts, enhance the capabilities of the factory floor while also improving efficiency, productivity, and other KPIs. And by eliminating the requirements for all factory workers to be on site, manufacturers enable often overstretched subject matter experts and managers to apply their expertise to multiple factory environments, or just like across one factory. Now, many have discovered that plans look good on paper, and all of this probably sounds maybe really good, but pretty hard to translate into practice. And consequently, the virtual shift can cause some manufacturers to just trip and stumble. Right? We experienced many of those things even just as our team moved to more of a remote environment. So to keep that from happening, and while making the most of this unique opportunity to evolve your organization, here are some best practices that we find to enable a successful shift and implementation of platforms like MachineMetrics. The first one is to just delineate and choose your teams wisely. You got to ask yourself, who has to work inside the factory today? Conversely, who does a job that could or should be performed remotely, not just during these times, but moving forward? The answers to these questions aren't always simple, and they're not always obvious. Many manufacturers are broadening the skill sets of on-site teams to create more generalist positions, right? And populating the factory floor with people who, with the right guidance, can tackle many different jobs and can help resolve a much wider range of issues, right? Conversely, find ways to utilize these specialists remotely, whether it's reliability, quality, engineering, or other subject matter experts. The specialized focus of their work makes it actually more conducive to performing digitally. And having those guys off-site also lets them remotely serve, multiple different people at different times, or even at different factories, and cross-pollinate their knowledge across the organization. The second key advice recommendation would be just to identify and prioritize the technology that you need, right? So this virtual shift will only work if the infrastructure for data collection, analytics, and remote collaboration is up to par, works, right? Some offices have had an easy time going remote as they are optimized for connectivity. Many factories still just lack that basic capability, right? So think about the user needs. For example, how does someone inside the factory react to a machine problem today when they are managing more machines than usual? How do we identify and communicate schedule changes to our group? Right? To enable a more seamless virtual shift, this technology infrastructure is going to have to be upgraded. A simpler way to say this is sometimes you have to spend money to help save money. I know it's a hard, like even for me sometimes, it's something I hate having to come to terms with, but it's true in my personal life and in the business life. Lastly, change of behavior, adapting our business to behaviors, right? Manufacturing collaboration between virtual and on-site workers, it's going to break down if any participants lack adequate training. This is a fundamentally new way of working for everybody involved. It's unrealistic, right, to think that everybody in the factory can instantly adapt with minimal instruction. Training, ongoing sharing of best practices are paramount for the success of this remote collaboration. So members of this virtual shift should think of their role as helping the on-site teams to work as effectively and safely as possible. Remote workers aren't there to dictate orders. They're not there to bark orders at people that have to be on site. Their job is to ensure a consistent layer of digital support in order to realize the maximum benefits of remote collaboration and machine data collection analytics has to offer for your factory floor. So, in conclusion, every day another challenge is arising, right? And the growing impact of this last year has left many companies rushing to implement new processes to minimize operational impact. I can tell you this because at MachineMetrics, we've never had so many companies coming to us today saying we need solutions right now. And while some manufacturers have been forced to change their strategies temporarily, this is not a temporary shift. This is all also easier said than done. Factories depend on operators to keep machines running remotely. It's simply not possible today for them to work remotely without having a roadmap to get there. It is possible, however, to significantly reduce the number of people that are needed, right, to maintain operations. So taking action today to enable remote monitoring and other contingency plans will not only support the business continuity of today, but it will help you become more resilient for future opportunities like this or pandemics, natural disasters, and other challenges, right? Like a skilled labor shortage, which is currently happening, right? Having a business continuity plan along with a remote monitoring solution, like MachineMetrics, for example, can minimize the impact on manufacturing operations, while machine learning and performance optimization solutions can also help you prepare for any economic downturns that are going to exist in the future. I just want to say thank you guys. I hope that this was a good presentation. I have a bunch of questions here that I'm going to get started answering. But for those of you who have any questions for me that would prefer to reach out directly, this is me again pre-quarantine Graham. This is now what I look like, and this is my email address. So I'm gonna just get started answering some of these questions. Justin asked, what was the statistic percentage of manufacturers using remote monitoring? Justin, my source had it well under 40%. I've also seen numbers close to 41%. Based on the number of companies that we work with that actually have remote machine monitoring capabilities, my guess is it's even lower than that. I hope that that's a useful question answered. But these are all self-reported pieces of data. Another question that came in was, what type of machines can MachineMetrics connect to? Happy to answer that. MachineMetrics, part of what makes us unique is our ability to connect to virtually any piece of discrete manufacturing equipment. So, it's not just modern machines. Our wheelhouse is in, turning, milling, stamping, fabrication, injection molding, cold heading, lasers, axes, grinders, welders, robots, cobots. But we have customers integrating, 500 manual welders or paint lines or, all sorts of different pieces of equipment that exist on the factory floor today. So we're just scratching the surface of what's possible, all of which is easy for us to connect to today. Another question that came in was, what does on-site integration look like? I want to be clear because I think this is a critical differentiator between what we do and what other companies do. Last year, 90% of our customers integrated MachineMetrics on site without us ever having to step a foot inside these factories. The reason that we're able to do that is because of our truly innovative edge platform, which is like that little green box you saw earlier in the presentation. That allows us to plug and play with virtually any piece of modern equipment. And you can literally plug an Ethernet port into that machine. That box actually acts as a one-way transaction of data from those assets, which provides a security blanket for these machines. So it's actually far more secure to have one of our edge devices connected to an asset than connecting your machine to like a local network or anything like that, just for what it's worth. Those protocols, I think I mentioned earlier, MT Connect, OPC UA, OPC, UMADI, Fanuc Focus, Siemens, Heidenhain, Haas, Ethernet IP, Modbus TCP, for anybody here that cares about these crazy acronyms like I do. We can nerd out on that, and feel free to reach out about it later. Does MachineMetrics have a DoD solution with the required cybersecurity? Great question. The answer, this is a complicated question. My answer to that would be yes. MachineMetrics works with some of the most secure companies in the world, and we are their reliable solution for machine data analytics and monitoring and data collection, even predictive analytics. Now, we could argue about this point for a long time, because the question I think that would be more important to ask is like, does machine data fall into ITAR compliance, right? I think, for what it's worth, right, the definition of ITAR, right, is essentially, technical data, right? Now, technical data covered by ITAR specifically controls engineering information like drawings, 3D models, proprietary processes. That data that MachineMetrics collects is just operational machine data and health data. So we don't collect drawings, 3D models, or CAM programs. We have many customers who are ITAR compliant today and have selected MachineMetrics as their source of truth for machine data. So I hope that answers that question. I had a question that comes in here that says, please present some real life use cases for MachineMetrics data. Really great question. I'd be happy to. Some of the top use cases that we see for customers today are kind of the number one is just capacity analysis, right? Understanding current overall machine capacity and machines with open capacity. We have customers that are on the precipice of buying, 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 100 new pieces of manufacturing equipment, and literally millions of dollars in expenses. And they plug in MachineMetrics and they find out that they're using their equipment all in all closer to 20% of their utilization. We had a customer that did this and literally within 48 hours canceled an order for $20 million in equipment that they didn't need, right? Now, buying that equipment would not have done that customer any favors, because they probably would have gone out of business. This happens all the time, right? So capacity analysis is a classic real life use case that we see. We just talked about remote machine monitoring and all the use cases around that, so I'm not going to dive too deep into that. But like a great example would be like machine productivity, understanding and optimizing specific machine performance. If you're a high volume, capacity constrained, or low volume, want to fill open capacity manufacturer, are we able to get part counts from our machines? Can it be visualized, right? How do we analyze this to understand if our machines are performing up to expectation? These types of things will help us identify, say, do we need to actually purchase new equipment? Bottleneck analysis, it's a classic use case. MachineMetrics customers are able to categorize downtime events that occur on their machines, and they can determine which machines are impacting the productivity of a line or a cell, or what their top downtime reasons are. We had a customer, who came to us, and they're a global manufacturer of medical device equipment, and they operating under the assumption that they needed predictive maintenance, that machine health was their biggest problem, but wasn't the case. And when we started collecting data from their operations, what we ended up finding was that these machines were essentially being highly inefficiently set up and changed over. Their setup times were incurring 14 times the amount of time that was required for their operations. So that data became instantly visible, leveraging MachineMetrics in our platform. And then using triggers and automations within our system, they were able to reduce that amount of downtime from 14,000 hours to 1,000 hours. And for this manufacturer, right, that equated to about $4.5 million in additional capacity that they were able to generate from those machines. And that was just on a subsect of about 60 pieces of equipment. And they've since rolled out to 6 different sites, hundreds of different machines, and you can do the math, but it's in the tens of millions of dollars, the value that we're able to achieve there. Line balancing, another that's a class. How are multiple machines and cooperating to make a finished part and optimize a workload balance and throughput? Job standard optimization. It's another use case, right? How do you monitor and maintain cycle time standards? Are the cycle times in your ERP accurate? This is a really classic question, right? Because if they're not, you're probably overpricing parts. You're probably scheduling jobs much longer than they could actually take you. And in doing so, right, you're selling yourself short, because it turns out that a part that might take 2 minutes actually takes 1 minute. And if that's true, you can deliver that part faster, more efficiently, and have it cost less for the customer, which makes you more competitive, right? So having data on things like that, on things like OEE, right? Being able to understand how many good parts are you making when you're making it. OEE is a great use case because it can help you understand, well, okay, OEE, it's like, how many good parts am I making when I'm making? Great, right? But like, I want to know, of my 24/7 week, if we're able to do this as well as we can, how much do we actually need to run, right? That's another data point, acronym we call TEEP, which is essentially like OEE, but for a 24/7 experience. Setup analysis, changeover analysis. I could go on forever. Automating, I think like one final use case that I'll give you is just like automation system. So like, we have many customers that do maintenance on their machines based on some arbitrary calendar, right? Or when a machine breaks, right? And imagine if I did maintenance on my car like that, right? Well, I haven't been driving anywhere during COVID, so if I would waste thousands of dollars last year on maintenance I didn't need on my car, right? Now imagine if I was driving across the country every day, all day, for the last 5 months. Well, it's likely that my car would need more maintenance than a calendar tells me. Well, using something like MachineMetrics, we could use those machine data, like a usage trigger, how much the machine was actually in cycle, or machine alarms or conditions to tell you, to kick off like a trigger that notifies either your team when a maintenance event has to happen, or even easier, triggers a workflow that provides a work order in your maintenance system without having to have any sort of manual entry. That's the same use case that you can talk about with ERP, right? All that manual data entry that occurs with like an MES system. Like, we believe that MES systems will eventually turn into MAS systems, right? Manufacturing analytics solutions in the future, right? Where all this data will be at the center of these process triggers and not the manual entry of that data. And you can automate machine data with virtually any other factory floor system you have, including ERP systems and so on and so forth. I'm going to move on to other questions just because I went a little crazy on that one. Can we monitor robots? Absolutely. We absolutely can. If you have a bunch of FANUC robots in your factory, reach out. We'd love to work with you guys on that. Can you further explain predictive maintenance? Yes, absolutely. And this is a critical one that I want to explain. I would prefer to give you an explanation and even a use case. So we have a customer called BC Machining, and we just released a case study, and I hope you guys download it from our website, who ran their machines at 200% capacity. essentially accepting lost time and materials that occur when their tools break or fail, right? So they enlisted the help of MachineMetrics and our like essentially a groundbreaking new product that we just released to the market, which is called MachineMetrics Predictive, which is essentially an adaptive tooling technology that enables companies like BC Machining to diagnose, predict, and automatically stop machine tool failures that lead to broken tools, scrap parts, and costly downtime. This is not an easy thing to do, right? Because you need to be able to not just collect data from assets, but you need to be able to collect high frequency data, which is something that MachineMetrics has essentially like broken, like a groundbreaking new technology is able to do. And using this type of data, such as like HDTV was to like normal TV for machine data. And using this, we were able to actually identify the signals on this company's star machines before catastrophic tool failures were occurring. Parts made during those elevated load periods that we were able to see in the data were scrapped, costing BC Machine time and money. So over time, a couple weeks, a predictable pattern emerged, very clear, indicating with 99% accuracy when a machine tool would actually fail. And our MachineMetrics Predictive was then trained and released to diagnose, predict, and automatically stop these machines and thus these tool failures from happening at all. And that led to broken tools, scrap parts, and costly downtime. This eradicated all scrap parts from this company's operations. I urge you guys to check out this case study. It is really crazy. And we're really excited about this technology. So feel free to reach out if you want to learn more about that. I hope I was able to answer that question, Justin. But just to like cut to the chase, it's like forecasting, it's leveraging machine learning and AI algorithms, right, to understand like what precipitates a maintenance event, right? And then those maintenance can either deliver like triggers, like as notifications, or you can run these algorithms, right, these applications and these trigger systems right on our edge device on site, which can actually deliver like a feed hold to a machine that stops the machine before the problem actually happens. Feel free to reach out if you have more questions about that. We would love to dive deeper. Question that I got was, we implemented utilization software 6 years ago and saw an uptick. They're now working trying to pair their ERP, right? Does MachineMetrics work with ERP systems like JobBoss? Yep, we got an out-of-the-box ERP integration with JobBoss. Feel free to reach out to us, Kevin. We'd be happy to work with you on that. Yeah, we have 2 or 3 different customers, maybe more, probably more, that have MachineMetrics integrated with their ERP systems. I'm sorry, their JobBoss ERP systems specifically. We have dozens and dozens of customers that have those integrations with our systems. But like I said, MachineMetrics can really connect to any ERP system. Some of those ERP integrations are out of the box. Some of those are not, but feel free to reach out to our team because that one is right in our wheelhouse for what it's worth. I'm just going to check and make sure that I was able to like answer any of these questions. I think I was. Like I said, if anyone has any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to check out our website, MachineMetrics.com. I hope this was useful. Try not to make it too product centric, but like really focused on like the value that we can provide to manufacturers through solutions. Like I said, my name is Graham Immerman. You can reach me at graham@machinemetrics.com if you have any questions. And thank you all again for joining.